Today's episode is sponsored by absolutely nobody because I don't have a sponsorship deal. But what I do want to do is give you a shout out to Always Away Days. The guys that are there when you need to make the most of your away day experience for the New England Revolution. In today's episode, we're going to be talking about homegrown heroes, ? Winning away from home for the first time in the game day since, well, who even knows when. I think dinosaurs were around the last time we actually won our first game of the season. And also talking about the defensive revolution that's going on here at Foxborough.
Ladies and gentlemen, may I have your attention, please?
NERevs UK, all things Revolution from a UK perspective.
Hello everybody and welcome back. My name is Mike and welcome to the NERevs UK Show, all things Revolution from a UK perspective, and welcome in to episode 4. We've got a fair bit to get through today's episode. Obviously we're looking back at the game against Charlotte and dissecting it, analysing everything and just talking a load of absolute nonsense as always. And then we'll kind of be talking about some of the news as well. Not that I don't think there is anything, but there is. There's a little bit of news that's kind of literally just dropping as I'm recording. So I guess you can kind of tell when I'll be recording this. But also, just to start today's episode, I just want to obviously thank everyone for listening. It's been much, much appreciated. Obviously, I know I wasn't on the best of form last season. I had season 1 was okay. Season 2, I think I did a decent job. I got to 20 odd episodes in that season. Season 3 was good. Season 4, she's a bit of a write-off. Season 4 was for me. But we're back for season 5, I believe this is. I don't even know what season we're in anymore. But whatever season this is, we're already up to episode 4. But I just want to thank everyone's support. Not even just for this stuff, just on Twitter as well. It's just really, really nice community to be part of, and I absolutely love it. But obviously, you're not here to talk about me thanking everyone for all their work. What I want to do is thank the Revolution for finally getting us off to winning ways. A 1-0 victory over Charlotte in an absolutely jam-packed Bank of America stadium. It was, I can't even remember, I think it was like close to 70,000. It was like 69,300 and something. Absolutely insane. The atmosphere must have been rocking, and the Revolution came knocking and they blew the door down. Some really, really inspiring performances, which we'll obviously get into very, very shortly. And to be perfectly honest, I don't think Charlotte played particularly bad. But I mentioned in the last episode, or either in a Spaces somewhere, I've mentioned recently where I've been talking, which is what I'm doing now. I mean, these podcasts are good, aren't they? I literally just say whatever pops into my head. It is insane. But I was talking about that. I think the reason, a difference that I definitely noticed over the 2021 season to the 2022 season is the fact that the Revolution lost the ability to grind out results, even when we weren't playing particularly well. And I don't think we played particularly well against Charlotte, but what happened? We got 3 points. We actually grinded out a victory, which, last season just wasn't happening. I mean, Charlotte had more possession, pretty much, I think, periodically throughout the whole game. It was very rare that the Revolution held the possession for long periods of time and actually, was that overly threatening, or that, if I'm going to be honest about things, which I try to be here on the show and across all my socials, is that I don't think we were overly threatening, but we managed to get the one goal, which was what all it needed on the day, and it was really good to see, obviously, King Kess coming up with that. But overall, I think the game finished with possession, obviously, in Charlotte's favour. I think it was 54 to 46 overall. Their passing was slightly better today as well, 77% out of 321 passes to the Revolution's 259 at 72%. So that actually was better than ours as well. Good corner racked up for both teams though, although Charlotte not really looking to make anything from there. I was really worried with the amount of corners that were coming in, but I couldn't tell if either Charlotte were particularly bad at corners or we've improved, because normally set pieces was something that I would normally be worried about when the Revolution are defending a set piece. They had 8 corners and we seemed to deal with them really well. And I wouldn't say it was particularly, bad deliveries from Ashley Westwood. I think there's going to be some time for them to grow together and see what Westwood's kind of plays on set pieces. I think they need to definitely work on that, because I think he was putting the ball into decent areas, if I'm being honest, a lot of the time, but just no Charlotte players seem to be attacking it in the right areas. So I don't know if that's just a miscommunication or lack of cohesion from their perspective, but I don't really care, if I'm being brutally honest, because it doesn't affect me in the slightest. From our corners, again, I don't think there's a few that were kind of, I'd say more the set pieces than the actual corners that worked quite well. And if I'm going to be honest here, I don't remember ever watching a Revolution match thinking we were overly ambitious with any of our corner routines. I think we're really bog standard. I don't think we really do much of it. And when we've got a player like Carlos Hill, I think, we should start trying some different things. If you remember the 2021 season or when Gustavo Bo first came onto the scene, that was something different. We literally just played it to the edge of the area, and I don't think we've ever done that again. Or maybe we've tried it 1 or 2 times. And I'm not saying we have to try it every single time, but we seem to just have like 2 go-to corner routines and they don't seem to work. So yeah, I think that's one improvement we need to get onto in terms of converting them chances, because from 6 corners, I don't think any of them resulted in a shot on target. And we've got 2 kind of dominant players, Henry Kester and Dave Romney, look really strong when they're in them. I'm trying to think, was the one of them, I think maybe one we maybe got on target. I probably should have recorded this after watching the match, but I just didn't have time. I've got to give a big shout out to Apple TV though. I wasn't going to, I was a little bit dubious about the whole thing, if I'm being honest. But they put on a good, I was really impressed with the ability to be able to watch the full game back afterwards. I actually kind of like the commentary team. I think actually Lloyd Sam, I didn't know how good he'd be on commentary, but I was actually kind of impressed with him, and I really actually liked listening to it. Not saying obviously they're better than Brad and Charlie, obviously and it's good that we've now got the option to listen to them. And hopefully at some point that'll potentially be embedded. I don't know if that's going to be embedded into the player or what. I probably doubt it, but it'd be nice to have the option. But yeah, it was good to be able to just watch the full game back as well as a highlight package. That was nice. So obviously when I got up the next day, I was able to watch the full game back again. Probably should have done it again before I actually, or at least the highlights before I recorded the episode, because then it would have been fresh in my mind. But overall, I say I think we did okay. I don't think we should start spouting anything at the moment. I don't think we're in a place to put up MLS Cup champions signs anytime soon. But I think it was a okay result and an okay performance. Well, no, I said the result's actually better than okay. The performance was just okay. I don't think their front three just wasn't really linking. You can tell it's really early on, and this is what my thought process was behind kind of rating it as okay, I suppose you can say, is the fact that on the day, if you think about, maybe if we had this game, I don't know, maybe 7 to 10 games in when, the cohesion of the team was a little bit more solidified, I think Charlotte this would have been a different game, a different result. I know the fact we could say the same our perspective, but we're not bringing in a ream of new players. In the starting 11, I suppose you could count Noel Book as a new signing, and obviously Dave Romney. But other than that, it was players that have been around the Revolution now last season as well. And I suppose you could argue that Dylan Barrero and Giacomo Veroni are almost like new signings because of injuries and the fact that they came through only halfway through the season. But they've still had the pre-season and half of last season to kind of get to know the team, get to kind of understand how we play and that kind of thing. So I don't think we can use that as an excuse. And I'm not saying like Charlotte have bought a load of new players, but when you've got a new manager and a new philosophy, it's a little bit more than just a few new players bought into that. So I think they've, that I think they'll come good. I think they'll be a force to be reckoned with in the for this season. I think they're going to be right up there in the upper echelons of the league this season when it all was said and done. I think that they just had an off day, but I think we took our opportunity, I suppose, pounced on a really kind of good bit of play from the Revolution. Obviously, ended up with King Kess grabbing a goal. And obviously, I know that on FootMob he's rated the higher player, but obviously that's because he scored the goal. But I think, plaudits should go to Dave Romney for his performance, because first game of the season, I know obviously he's an MLS veteran kind of now, so he probably understands the league a little bit better than if you're a foreign player coming in. But he had an absolute solid performance, and I was really pleased to see. I think now that is the defensive partnership for this season. I think it's going to be quite hard for Andrew Farrell to actually worm his way back in now, unless obviously Kessler picks up an injury. And I think that's the only way we see Farrell get minutes, or a good amount of minutes. I think obviously with the cups this season, we've got obviously the Open Cup and the Leagues Cup as well. So it's vital that we've got depth now. But yeah, I think from a starting perspective, I think that defensive back five now just picks itself week in, week out. And I see no reason to disrupt that as well, because if they've already gelling that well in week one, and I'm not saying it was a great performance, because I think in our defensive transition we were caught short on plenty of occasions, and that's purely because our wing backs just like to bomb forward too much. And I think that's maybe where I think for me, I really like Polster and Book playing together, and I think Noel Book had an absolutely, I wouldn't say an amazing game, but he had a really, really solid start to his Revolution career, and for being thrust into the starting 11 game day one, and to put in such a good performance. And if you weren't a Revolution fan and didn't know that was his first, was that his first start? I think that's his first start, if I'm correct in thinking that. But just thinking, for a 17-year-old, even just put that into perspective, a 17-year-old thrown into MLS game day one of the season, I don't think many would have thought that was the case. It was a good performance. Them two seem to be linking up quite well. The only negative I'd say from that perspective is they're both quite similar. We need one to be, I'd say they're both an 8 if you're going to give it a number, where we need obviously one of them to be the more defensive minded player, because as I said, because the two wing backs get pushed forward so much, I think Pulser's probably going to be the one that probably does mostly that defensive duty. Although there's a great one when Noel Book managed to dispossess, was it Bronico, I think it was, when he went through, and if he hadn't tracked that run, I don't know, obviously we have got one of the best goalkeepers in the league in goal, but it would have been a bit of a worrying moment, but he tracked the run really well, and obviously managed to break up play. But I think that defensively we need one of them to definitely be more mindful and really sit back the whole game, because I did notice at times when you watch back the game, and if you watch it back now, that they both kind of do go forward at times, and that literally is just leaving Romney and Kessler there. It might have been because maybe if we're attacking down one flank, the other wing back doesn't push maybe on so much, which I did notice. So I think that was maybe something that Bruce has tried to rein in a little bit this season, that if one of you goes the other side, then you can't, the one on the other wing can't always go as well. You got to kind of judge it with what's happening there. I think, as I say, I think the whole kind of back, well, I suppose you could say the back seven, Petrovic, Jones, Romney, Kessler, Book and Polster, I think they all had really, really good games. Say there was a few times when Jones and Bai were caught out of position in defensive transition, and I say on a different day against a different team, that's the worrying perspective. I think that if we went up against Seattle or Philly game day one again, or as I said, Charlotte in a few more games time, this could have been a different result. No matter how good Petrovic is, if he's been bombarded for big amounts of time, he's bound to let one in. I think there's still work to be done, but I think you can take a lot of positives from that performance. I said it was good that kind of 7 gelled really well from the off, which is a massive positive for me. And then we kind of get into the final third of the field, where I think we just lacked a lot, if I'm being honest. Giacomo Veroni, just still for me, just again, it's only game day one, so we haven't got to start throwing our toys at the pram or anything like this, or saying he's a bust. But he has got to start really turning the performances around for me. I think I think you can kind of see he's got it in him, and there's flashes of it, but And I get it's hard. I mean, we were all kind of. I was in the same boat with Adam when he first joined as well. You know, I was thinking, oh man, this guy for me, I don't think he's the one. And then all of a sudden, something just clicked, and goals started flying him in. And you know, Giacomo's got a lot to do now to prove. He's got the DP tag on him, which he didn't ask for, but he's got it. He's being paid good money to come over here and start scoring us some goals. And if he's not going to be scoring us some goals, then we're looking at his other bits of play, and I've been asked some questions which I will kind of get to and answer a little bit later on. But one of them was around hold-up play, and I think for me, I just didn't see enough of it for him. He wasn't trying to bring players into play. He didn't, when he wasn't being involved, he wasn't involved for large periods of the game. You'd maybe like to see him start dropping deeper and deeper to kind of get involved, and then that could also then leave space for players like Barrero and Tico to run into. But for me, the front quarter four of the team, Barrero had spurts, and I think he did look dangerous at times, and I think he will. Again, he's in a very similar position. He had a bit of an injured play season last season when he came in halfway through, but I think he had. Out of the two, I think he was definitely the one that shone the brightest. I think he had some really, really good runs. He looked dangerous when he wanted to. He's very direct in a lot of his play. For me, I think it's just the end product, which I think is what the Revolution were lacking a lot of it. We were getting into some good positions, multiple occasions, but the end product for me was just not there, or sometimes our decision making just wasn't quite right, and we were making snappy decisions. I always, think that sometimes we play too slowly, but there is a time and a place for patient build-up play, and sometimes we just snap at a decision, and it's generally the wrong one. So, but again, we got to also prefix a lot of this by saying it's game day one. They've still got a lot of time and cohesion to build between them all. I'm sure it will start to click in place. Carlos had a quiet game. There's a good period in the second half where I don't think he touched the ball for a good kind of 10 minutes or so, which is quite concerning. He was dropping deep at times to try and get himself involved as well. And I think when you've got a player of his, skill set on the pitch, I think you need to try and get him involved as often, as regular as we can. But yeah, he seemed to struggle. I don't know if that was maybe part of Charlotte's game plan, and maybe that was what was working more so. And if so, then we need to obviously think of a way to counteract that. So that could be obviously a feature throughout the whole season. Everyone knows how good he is. It's not like anyone's sleeping on him anymore. They're fully aware of his skill set and what he brings to the table. So he is going to be fouled a lot this season. He's going to be marked to hell. But the Revolution need to find out if that is happening, and we're kind of we're almost Carlos Hillis. Then what do? We need other ways around it. And for me, Tico didn't have a good game. I mean, I'm not saying again he's that's it for his opportunities this season, but you think game day one, and to be fair, when you think about it, he probably is being played because we've got no Nacho, there's Boateng's only just signed, and maybe he could have started. We're using Tommy Mack in a more deeper role now. I suppose maybe you could have tried Blessing out there. I was actually quite surprised to not see Blessing even get many minutes off the bench. I thought, that even if he hadn't started, I thought we'll still definitely see him off the bench, but we didn't, which was quite interesting. But I probably would have liked to have seen Bowman there, if I'm being honest. But that's only in hindsight now. When actually seeing him on the team sheet, I was thinking, okay, fair enough. He must have, he's got to have been putting in the effort in training for Bruce to have faith. But I think this was a really big opportunity for him to go out there and stake this place now as his, because if you're putting in performances game day one, and then when it comes to game day two, the manager's got to think like, why would I drop him at this point? But for me, he looked, I don't know, he just looked lethargic. He looked like he wasn't up for it. He didn't look like he was giving it his all. I think he had only 10 odd touches or something like that, which is weird. Played 63 minutes of the game and just had very minimal touches on the ball. Which, as a kind of player that was playing in behind the striker, I know he's kind of playing more a wing, I suppose you could say, on the right wing, but he just wasn't getting involved as much as he could do. And I don't know if that's maybe because the Revolution, because a few things he tried early on just wasn't coming off, and he misplaced a few passes, and maybe they just thought that that we'll try and kind of work around that, and because they lost trust in him, he maybe felt it as well. I'm not really too sure, but I think it was a big opportunity wasted by Tico. I'm hoping it doesn't affect him too much, and I'm hoping he can come back strong and really showcase what the Revolution, what he can offer to the Revolution. But yeah, it was not a good performance to watch, and I'm quite surprised that it was left out there for so long. I did think that when Renix came on though, I think that was probably the better of the two options, but again, that's in hindsight, and obviously, he came on to the game when there's some more weary legs out there. Pre-season's good, but you only know how far you've gone and how good of pre-season you've had when game day one hits, and you realise that you're blowing at 63 minutes when the other team's actually still out there fighting fit. So he's come onto the pitch and he's looked actually good, to be fair. I think Justin Rennick's got involved a lot. I think he had some good good plays. He had 78% possession, 78% pass rate as well, so that was a decent one considering he only came on quite later on in the game. He seemed to get into the speed very quickly. He had some good passes through, a decent shot as well, which would have absolutely gone crazy if he'd come off the bench and scored it. In terms of obviously other players of note that came off the bench, obviously we had Bobby Wood come on for Veroni, and I think he actually, I wouldn't say obviously he had a great performance, but I think out of the two, for me, I think he definitely looked like he was having more impact on the game. His hold-up play was slightly better than Giacomo's, but it was still, it's not like, I think that, that's it now, straight swap should be done for next game, but I think he did look the more dangerous. But again, that might just be the fact that he's more in tune with the MLS. He's kind of knows what to expect, and I think for me, I think he had an okay performance. I think it was in a performance you kind of should expect for a player of his calibre to kind of come on. You'd probably like to see more of him, being honest. But I think game day one, only just coming into the squad, I think it was a okay performance. I think I'll take it. I don't want to see it week in and week out, but for where it is in the season and what we're doing, I think it was a decent performance. Overall, I just want to touch on. I won't really touch on Omar because obviously he came on with minimal minutes to do, and no one wants to talk about Omar. Oh, don't talk about Omar. I don't know why I just did that. But yeah, obviously Gustavo Bo, which is the news that kind of, no, it's not really just broke. It's broke today-ish. That obviously he's back in New England. We've seen he's gone into training. We've seen him hit an absolute fierce shot as well, which is quite pleasing to see. But he's gone back into full training, so he's kept himself in decent condition to the fact where he's been evaluated and actually thrown straight into the full training regime. So that's very pleasing to hear. And if we can have a fighting fit and a Gustavo Bo that wants to play for us and wants to put in performances, I think we could have a beast on our hands this season. And hopefully, if this is going to be his last season, hopefully he can kind of lead us to the cup and just go out with an absolute bang, because he's not getting any younger. I think he had a good season last season, out of a season where we didn't particularly have any standout performers, but I think he had a decent season, and obviously the season before it was an immense season, so it's good to have him back in the fold, putting some pressure back on Veroni. I'm not too sure how we kind of incorporate both strikers. I don't know if Bo maybe plays them more on the right hand side, and then we kind of just have Barrero, Carlos, and Bo behind, and then they just kind of what I did like, and as the kind of point I'm getting onto, is that you did see at times when Tico and Barrero did swap places, and I'd like to see that happening more for fluidity between the three behind the striker. So if we are having Barrero, Carlos Gil, and Gustavo Bo, then I would like to see them just interchangeable, and then at times interchanging with the striker. So if it is Giacomo Veroni, then just having that flexibility and fluidity between that front four to just kind of switch in and out of positions and just really kind of make it impossible for the defence to track a man. If they're man marking, they're going to be pulling the defence all over the place. So I think that could be quite interesting to see. But obviously at the same time, I'd still like to see Esmir and Jack P get some minutes as well this season. It's great to see that obviously Noel Book, Tico and Renix all getting kind of minutes in. But talking about homegrown heroes, it was only really Noel Book for me that stood out. I think Renix had a decent game when he came on the pitch, but for me, Tico, that's one to write off, unfortunately, buddy, on that one. in terms of the whole game as a whole, as I kind of alluded to before, Petrovic weren't really put under too much pressure at any one time. I think he had, it was a handful of saves, nothing that really kind of, I think it was 4 shots they had on target, nothing that really kind of tested him too much. So I think it's quite an easy day for him. Obviously, he had to get the Dunkin' Donuts card out again, which I'm sure his teammates were very pleased about. But overall, I think we did look kind of comfortable in the game, if I'm being honest. Even times when we kind of got caught, I sometimes feel worried when I watch Revolution. I think that was more last season, because we was having a little bit of a downward trajectory, that I kind of started to feel a bit more worried about the whole thing. But this season, I don't know what it is. Even when, opportunities they were pushing forward and maybe we were caught short at times, and again on set pieces and corners, I never really felt overly concerned, which is weird, because normally I do, but I was fairly confident. But I don't know if that's the Romney effect. I don't know if that's what we're calling it nowadays, the Romney effect on the defence. But he just seemed to calm things down, and I think I think for me it was a standout performance from the Revolution. I think he had I think if you take the 3 players for me that had a really solid game, I think Henry Kessler did have a good game. I think Noelbrook had a good game, but I think Dave Romney takes plaudits for me, because it was a great performance, and I think he just he just seemed to calm everything down, and hopefully as that kind of 5 can gel a bit more, and we can start being better in the transition from attack to defence, then things can start clicking a bit easier for us, and we can kind of get more and more comfortable, so we're not feeling worried as Revolution fans, which we never should be. But yeah, we have got some people have actually asked some questions. Well, I think was it just one? I think it was just one person that asked a question, but he asked 2 questions. So this is from Twitter user Just S Cali. He was talking about off the ball movement and runs in the final third. I think he felt like we can be incredibly stagnant at times, even when we break and press up the wings. I feel we stall and the creative momentum dies. Who is doing what, where, and to what effect? But then he also kind of piggybacked off that about the hold-up play of Ronnie Woods and Renix. A breakdown of the respective impact on the front would be interesting. So I've kind of touched on this, but I'll kind of go through it all again. But yeah, for me, I think Barrero was the one who was kind of looking to do things. I said he was the most directive player out of the lot. Off the ball, if I will admit that there wasn't a lot happening, which maybe is why Carlos kind of went missing for times, because it wasn't happening as much as he wanted to. And I think that's where you have a player like Boateng on the, and I'm really glad we've obviously got that deal done and over the line, although it's and what I feel bad for him, because the salary is shocking. Obviously, it's a great bit of business, but then when you see players like, I'm not too disheartened about the fact that we signed him for such a small contract, because one, it's a little bit disrespectful to him, but it is a good bit of business. At the end of the day, it is a business. But then you've got players like Omar and Jose Altidore on stupid money, and it's like, how? But yeah, in the final third, I think you are right. We were very stagnant for large periods of time, if I'm being honest here. There wasn't a lot of runs going on. I think, say, Barrera looked quite active when he had the ball at his feet, but off the ball stuff for me wasn't maybe as impactful as he could have been. Carlos, again, he had a bit. It wasn't, I wouldn't say a bad game, but it wasn't one of his better games. We've definitely seen him play a lot better in a Revolution shirt. Tico had an off game for me, 100%. He was not with it at all. He was at a different training session for the obviously the pre-season, because he was not on the same page as a lot of players. I think Merrick's did well, actually. I think he gets a lot of shit thrown at him sometimes, but I think he actually had an impact when he came on. He seems to have beefed up off the off season and in pre-season. He seems a lot stronger now on the ball. Seems assured of himself as well. So hopefully that Justin Minutes can carry on and keep driving and putting in decent performances when we need him to. As I said, I do think he wouldn't say he was an unsung hero last season, because we had no heroes last season if we're going to be, other than maybe Petrovic, you could say. But yeah, for me, I think, although he was brought into as a striker, I suppose, I think what he did for the club when we needed him at his most, I think still gets a little bit shit on sometimes because of the numbers and in terms of goals, which again, you have got to judge a striker on his goal tally. But when he's a striker that's not been in the team for a while and, is maybe not up to speed, he's been loaned out to, well, not loaned out, but using the Revs too quite a bit, which are probably playing a slightly different system and different, they've got a different manager, and it's a little bit, then get thrown back into the first team. I think you got to give him a little bit more credit than maybe what people were giving him last season. I think he did a really good job, and it's quite pleasing to see that this season was given an opportunity off a bench, albeit, but I think he's definitely now got, if we're still in the same predicament game day 2, then for me, why don't you start Renix out there? I think he had a good enough performance, but yeah, we do just seem to it wasn't clicking as fluid as I'd like it. It was a lot of, and I mentioned earlier about, not really taking your foot off the gas sometimes, but maybe just being a little bit more patient with your passing, but which I do think we do need to be at times. But at the same time, I'm going to contradict myself slightly, that I would like to see us break a lot faster, but only when obviously it calls for it. When we've got the ball and the counter isn't on, then that's when I'd like to see a bit more patience taken, and we're trying to go for direct balls into players' feet, and then kind of one shot and one touch and a shot off, which can work from time to time, but there's kind of four men to beat before you get to the goal, and there's no point rushing it. Take your time, find the space. We've got enough creative players on the pitch to kind of do that. But for me, it was just, I don't know, it was kind of like we were playing turn-based football at sometimes. It was like just waiting for an opportunity, and it kind of, you'd mentioned stalling, and it was like we did stall for a second, and the player's brain stalled, and it was like, okay, what should I do now? And when I want to talk about patient build-up play, I'm not on about slow. I'm on about passing the ball around. Doesn't mean it's got to be slow passing the ball around, but waiting for the moment when you're creating the space. That can still be done at a fast speed. Just, you're patiently building up to the play, passing it around the back, switching the ball over side to side, quick passes to get players into space. That's still patient build-up. Doesn't mean it has to be slow. And in terms of hold-up play, I think for me, Giacomo, he just didn't do it. Wood kind of was trying to do it, and I think he definitely did more. He was trying to bring players into play. He was dropping a bit deeper, bringing the ball down on his chest, holding the ball at his feet, waiting for players to make runs off him. And I think, if we had probably bought someone like Boateng on, then I think we could have had a bit more impact, if I'm being honest. But I think for me, if you want to rank it, I think it would probably go Wood, Renix, Giacomo. So I think Wood had the most impact. Although, I don't know, it's close between Wood and Renix. I don't think any of them had a massive impact on the game, but I think, no, if I was going to do it, I know I'm kind of standing Bobby Wood at the moment, which is weird, because I was never it's never like I've been let's get Bobby Wood to the Revolution, or although I do sign him on Football Manager sometimes, and he normally puts in a decent shift for me as well. But I think he had I'll go Renix, Wood, and then Veroni in terms of it having impact on the game. I think that's only fair. But I think it's very close between Wood and Renix. But again, I wouldn't say it was like, it was the defence for me that had the I mentioned at the start of the show about defensive revolution. I wouldn't really call it a revolution, but I think we're kind of starting to see the 2021 defence that we had rather than that 2022 one, because no one wants to see that again. But thank you for the question. Obviously, thanks for getting involved. It's much appreciated. As obviously, I do this for myself in a selfish way, just because I like talking and I love talking about revs. But I also do it for you guys, so obviously I do want you to try and get as involved. If you've got any questions, it doesn't have to be related to the Revolution. Obviously, I'd like it to be, but if you just want to know stuff about me, then ask me a question. If I can answer it, then I will, or I feel like I'm in a safe space, or I suppose that that I can divulge the information. If it's a kind of more personalised question, then I will. But in terms of the Revolution, the start to the season, yeah, it was okay. I don't think we need to start going crazy. I think on a different day, a different team, it could have been definitely a different result. But as I said, the 2021 season was a lot of grinded out results. We didn't play particularly well in a lot of games, but we managed to get the 3 points, and that is exactly how we've started this season. So that is a massive positive to take, and I think, you know, that shouldn't be underestimated about the fact that we did okay, and we still got 3 points again I imagine in a very hostile environment. You know, well, you don't really see it as much over in the States as you do in England. Like if you had a stadium, 70,000 people inside a stadium where it pretty much is mostly, you know, a good 90 to 99% home fans, so there's a lot of noise and a very minimal noise from the away fans. If that was over here, then man, that would have been a horrible environment for the away team to play. That's why obviously we have ticket allocations to kind of make it at least fair, I suppose, in a way. Not that that always works, but it'd have been crazy atmosphere for the Revolution to play. But I'm proud of the boys. It was not the prettiest of games by any stretch of imagination, but it was 3 points, and we've got to take it. We've got to take these things as we come. Still a lot of work to do, say defensively in the transition. There's still a lot to do. We can't underestimate that. And you know, it's not like we've got an easy game coming up either. You know, it's Houston next, which then, you know, they're not going to be an easy feat. It's not like we're going. I thought it's fair. I don't know there's going to be any easy games this season. But yeah, less than 5 days away now. Obviously, we host our first home game of the season against Houston, and that's going to be a tough one for me. I don't think that's going to be. I know they lost their first game over against Cincinnati, so they're having 2 away games to start with. But they had again for me, they had a large chunk of possession in that game, and got outdone by a resilient Cincinnati team who, again, I think are going to be thereabouts this season. I think, you know, that was a really dogged display from Cincinnati to get the victory on that one. And I think on a different day, Houston probably should have done better. Hopefully that day isn't their next game. They can leave that one, and then, you know, they can probably have their moment in their first home game of the season against Austin. But they can leave the Gillette Stadium alone, and we'll take 3 points, please. Thank you. But in terms of what I think we'll kind of see, I've seen that next game day. I don't think we'll you know, I'm always trying to be honest here. I don't think we'll see Tico in the starting lineup. I think that will probably be the only change we make, unless we know where Gustavo is. For me, I think Renix just starts. I think it's just a straight like for like swap in that one. I think Renix will start up there. The only one I could see is, depending on what happens between now and game day, is he might start Bobby Wood up top. I very much doubt it. It's not like he's going to have, you know, 2 DPs not in the starting 11 when he's got a DP that is available to him. But and then I suppose, but it would be a bit disheartening for Noel Book to be dropped and Blessing to be started. But no, for me, I think we'll go pretty much the same 11, but it'll just be Renix for Tico. The only other thing maybe I could say would be Boateng for Tico. Either way, I don't think Tico Riviera is going to be starting this game. I'm going to go for a 2-0 victory. I'm going to go for a much solid performance, a better performance from the Revolution. I think we'll see a lot better football coming from them. I think we'll see the Magician, Capi getting on the ball a lot more, pulling some strings. Things will start to see a little bit more fluid. I'd like to see us maybe utilise our subs a little bit more, only bringing the 2 on. I don't know if it's the right move for me. I think we could have probably done with, Boateng could have been a really big impact to us on that game. And then maybe he could have brought on Christian Moncao. I'm not really too sure. Moncao? I never know how to pronounce any players' names. But yeah, it was, I'm going to go 2-0 to Revolution. Same lineup apart from Tico. Probably be just a Rennick started. Outside bet of Boateng starting ahead of Rennick's. Maybe Bobby Wood, who knows. But yeah, I think it'll be a lot more comfortable this game, hopefully. Despite obviously Houston having dominated possession against Cincinnati, I think we'll have the home crowd behind us this time. We'll hopefully be able to put on a show for the Fort and Gillette Stadium. But I think that pretty much is going to wrap up today's episode. I don't think I've got really much more I can ramble on about. And we're at the kind of the nearly 40-minute mark now as well. So I'm sure you lot, if you haven't already switched off, then you're an absolute legend. And just go over. Actually, if you are still listening, go over to Twitter right now. Find my profile. It's at NERevs UK. Again, very weird if you've stumbled across this podcast and you don't already follow me over on Twitter. And just comment without any context. Just comment the word pizza. And that'll be our little secret. Also get involved by submitting any questions you want me to kind of answer in upcoming episodes, and I will try my best to facilitate that. And last of all, just keep yourself safe. Hope you're all doing well. And I hope to see you guys very, very soon. I will catch you guys next time. Hopefully, I'll be able to do another episode after the game against Houston. Fingers crossed. It's another... It's not as bad as the one afterwards. The one afterwards is like bloody Monday at 2:30 in the morning for me. This one is only midnight again. The reason why I struggled with the Charlotte one was purely just because I had such a busy day. I was in London. So we'd travelled down to London really early. I took my wife away for the weekend to go and see Wicked in London, and so we'd set off on the train really early to get down to London. Well, it's not like a massive journey, it's only like 2 and a bit hours or whatever. Did a bit of shopping, a bit of sightseeing, but when I talk about sightseeing, we've obviously seen all of the stuff that most people come over to see. So we've seen some of the bits that we hadn't kind of visited. We hadn't really visited and walked around Covent Garden before either, so we kind of went to that. Had a walk around the markets there and stuff, so that was... stuff we'd never really done. But yeah, did a bit of shopping, went for a really nice Mexican meal. Love myself some Mexican food, absolutely delicious. And then had a few drinks there, and then headed off into where did we go? The Apollo Theatre, watched Wicked, really, really good show, and then obviously headed back to the hotel for the evening. And I really wanted to stay up and watch the game, but I was so exhausted. I literally managed 25 minutes into the game, and I could just feel myself. I was like, you know what, I'll watch it on the train on the way back the next day, and that's what I did. For the power of Apple TV. But I've already wrapped the episode up, guys, and I've rambled on for even longer. So I hope you're all staying safe. Hope you're all doing well. Come on, the Revolution. Let's get 3 more points against Houston, and I'll catch you guys very, very soon. Shortly.